Welcome back, Focus Learners. So today, we're tackling a topic that honestly sounds completely mundane, right up until you have to write the check. As an engineer who spent way too much time analyzing load-bearing surfaces, I'll tell you right now, your driveway is not just a patch of pavement. It's a major structural investment. We're talking about the literal foundation of your home's curb appeal, not to mention its daily heavy-duty functionality.
So here's a high-stakes question for you right off the bat. Which driveway actually outlasts your mortgage? Look, making the wrong call here means you're going to be out in the freezing cold patching cracks in a decade, just bleeding cash on non-stop maintenance. But if you make the scientifically right choice, well, that surface could literally last for generations.
Okay, let's dive into this systematic engineering assessment. We're going to rapidly cover the materials, the true costs, structural durability, climate factors, maintenance schedules, and finally the verdict. Kicking things off with Part 1, materials and their key differences.
So, fun fact, both of these contenders actually use the exact same base aggregates. We're talking basic gravel and sand. But what's really interesting here is the binder. Concrete uses Portland cement. That's a rigid, water-activated binder. Asphalt, on the other hand, relies on bitumen, which is a flexible, petroleum-based tar. And it's that single fundamental chemical difference, rigid cement versus flexible tar, that cascades into wildly different costs, behaviors, and maintenance nightmares down the road.
Which brings us right to Part 2, cost, specifically the upfront price tag versus the true 30-year total.
Let's run the numbers, shall we? For your standard 600 square foot, two-car driveway, asphalt is definitely cheaper up front. You're looking at roughly $2,700 to $4,500. Sounds great, right? But hold on. Look at the 30-year total. Because of the constant mandatory maintenance asphalt demands, its true costs can balloon up to $18,000. Meanwhile, concrete's 30-year total pretty much caps out between $7,000 and $11,000. So over time, the financial math completely flips.
And that brings me to this stark warning straight from our source data. Most homeowners only think about Chapter 1, and it's why so many end up surprised by the true cost of the cheaper option. You know, this hidden long-term cost of cheap upfront pricing? It's a financial trap I see property owners fall into constantly. But hey, the financial story doesn't stop at maintenance. It extends right to your property equity. 50 to 70%. Literally, that is the portion of your initial installation cost that a well-maintained concrete driveway can return to you in added resale value. It really elevates the home's premium finish. Whereas asphalt, appraisers generally just view it as a functional baseline.
All right, moving on to Part 3, lifespan and structural durability. As you can see, there is a massive longevity gap between these two materials. Concrete gives you an incredible 30 to 50-year lifespan compared to asphalt's 20 to 30 years. Now, putting my engineer hat on for a second, that 50-year concrete lifespan absolutely assumes you're using an air-entrained 4,000 psi mix that's poured a solid 5 to 6 inches thick. You literally cannot cut corners on the mix design and expect it to survive.
But wait, here is the absolute non-negotiable core of any structural paving project. You need a 4-inch compacted gravel subbase. Guys, I cannot emphasize this enough. Without a 4-inch gravel base compacted to 95% proctor density, your driveway is completely doomed. I don't care if you use concrete or asphalt, it will fail in 10 to 15 years. If the foundation is weak, the surface cracks. End of story.
Okay, let's pivot to Part 4, climate, the ultimate wildcard, hot versus cold. Geography is honestly the single most important variable in this entire equation. Let's translate the engineering here. In severe freeze-thaw climates, asphalt actually wins out. Its flexible bitumen binder and its high tolerance for de-icing salts allow it to move with frost heave without shattering. But in a hot, dry climate, no way. When the ambient temp hits 95 degrees, that black asphalt absorbs solar radiation and can hit a scorching 140 to 160 degrees. It gets so soft your car's tires will literally leave ruts in the surface. So in the Sunbelt, rigid, heat-reflecting concrete is the undisputed champion.
Now, what if you live in a freezing climate, but you're like, I absolutely insist on that premium concrete aesthetic? Well, here are your survival rules. First, you must specify an air-entrained 4,500 psi mix. Basically, those microscopic air bubbles act like tiny pressure relief valves when water freezes inside the slab. And crucially, you have got to protect it from sodium chloride. Rock salt causes immediate surface spalling on concrete. You really have to use sand or calcium magnesium acetate for de-icing instead.
This brings us to Part 5, maintenance and wait times, the day-to-day reality.
Let's see how this builds from the exact moment the crew finishes the pour. When it comes to the curing timeline, concrete demands some serious patience. I mean, it's walkable in maybe 24 to 48 hours, but you're looking at a significant 7-day wait before it's drivable for passenger cars. And it takes a full 28 days to hit its maximum structural strength. Asphalt, on the other hand, highly practical if you need it operational fast. You can be driving on that in just 1 to 3 days.
But the trade-off for that fast usability is what I like to call the grueling asphalt maintenance schedule. Seriously, just to get asphalt to survive its rated lifespan, you have to seal it in year 2, pay to reseal it every 3 to 5 years, continually fill this never-ending network of cracks, and by year 15 or 20, you're shelling out thousands for a full resurfacing overlay. Contrast that with concrete, which is basically a seal it and forget it for a decade kind of deal.
All right, it's time to synthesize our data. Part 6, the final engineering verdict.
So choose concrete if you're in a warm or mild climate, if you're chasing that long-term ROI, and if you care deeply about curb appeal. On the flip side, choose asphalt if you're facing severe winters and heavy salt use, if you've got a really tight upfront budget, or if you just need fast usability. The crucial point here is that neither material is universally superior. Your specific climate and your budget dictate the scientifically correct choice.
Which brings me to one final actionable question for you. Are you ready to calculate your exact cubic yardage? Before you even think about talking to a paving contractor, I highly recommend using a free concrete slab calculator, like the one over at concretecalculators.com. Just punch in your length, width, and thickness to find your required cubic yards. Knowing your true engineering numbers is literally the ultimate way to avoid overpaying for materials. Thanks for joining me on this explainer, and as always, keep learning.